Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate and GREturnkey.com.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Hey, welcome to GRE, Get Rich Education, episode 146. Hi, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, and today we're talking about using debt for investment, both for investing in real estate and other debt types too. My friend Dave Zook has a great quote out there. You might have seen it. Dave simply says, "You can be conventional or you can be wealthy." And I think there's a lot to be said for that approach with debt as well, because conventional wisdom is to not have any debt. Some might even say all debt is bad and to pay it down and pay it off as soon as you can, even if you have to sacrifice your lifestyle to do it and not travel anywhere and eat top ramen noodles in order to do it. Well, at GRE, we're not about the conventional and we are about wealth creation. If one's take on debt is to simply eliminate it, gosh, that is just too simple. And in fact, I've given loads of episodes on this show about how being debt-free can actually get in your way of becoming financially free. Okay, so let's say that you're a real estate investor, as you probably are, and if you aren't, you're trying. Let's say that you have all your properties paid off, no mortgages, and you're still working at a job that you're really not passionate about. Well, I'd like to ask you, as a real estate investor that's in a zero leverage, 100% paid off position, this question. How would you like your real estate investment portfolio to be 5 times as big as it is now? Okay, wouldn't you rather have 80% loan-to-value loans on all your properties and have your portfolio be 5 times as large as it is now? Well, in that case, go ahead and calculate how that would change your cash flow. Then you would also see that you have more overall property to potentially appreciate if you think that's what it's going to do. You would do a better job at putting more of other people's money to work now because you would have 5 times more tenants and they would all be making the principal pay down for you. You would have more inflation profiting benefits from all those loans and probably substantially more tax advantage too. And this also tilts in the direction of better asset protection for you. The other question I would ask the zero leverage fully paid off investor is a question that you've heard me ask before, and that is, if you could invest in a vehicle that could never go up in value but could only go down, then how much of it would you want? Well, you would want 0. That sounds awful. Well, that vehicle that can never go up in value and only go down is called home equity. Well, debt replaces your home equity, and I've discussed this at length on other episodes, so I'm not going to do all that today. But in summary, if your property appreciates in value, it had nothing to do with the equity inside the walls of the home. It only had everything to do with what is outside the walls of the home, like your chosen investment real estate markets, job growth, wage growth, in-migration versus out-migration pattern, the remaining availability of developable land, and other factors. But appreciation works independently. It doesn't matter how much equity you have in a property. Conversely, if you've got equity in a property hanging out there and the real estate market goes down in value, well, then that exposed equity hanging out there is the very first thing to be taken away. That's why home equity is unsafe, illiquid, and its rate of return is always 0. But like I said, that's ground I've covered before. And if you're a newer listener, then episode 127 is where you can get caught up on that or where you can do some review. I've discussed that I like 30-year fixed rate mortgages more than 15 because that way you automatically get better cash flow and you're not accumulating equity as quickly that way. And you know what my favorite real estate loan type is, though? It is interest-only loans. Yeah, interest-onlys are my favorite loan type. Why pay down principal? I'd rather have that principal pay down as cash flow and let my loan be paid down by inflation in tenants using other people's money, not mine. All right, when you look around at the different debt types in your life, whether that be mortgage debt or student loans or credit cards or automobile debt, you realize that all debt is not the same. Some of it's recourse and some of it's non-recourse. Some debt types, like student loan debt, cannot be written off in bankruptcy. It just continues to stay there even after bankruptcy. And think about if student loan debt could be written off in bankruptcy. Okay, some people would just stay in school forever, so I don't really know that that would work. Different debt types are secured by different collateral, or some debt isn't secured at all, like credit card debt. Of course, your debt is at different interest rates. Some of it's fixed, like a mortgage, and some of it's adjustable, like home equity lines of credit, which kind of float around with the federal funds rate, and they've been floating up lately. Your debt also has varying access and liquidity, and here's what I mean by that. A conventional fixed-rate mortgage is kind of like a one-way street. Once you've taken dollars out to originate the loan, it becomes a one-way street for the next 30 years. You pay money in every month, hopefully with the help of your tenant, but see, it's difficult to get that money back out. That's the one-way street. Some people, largely uninformed ones, they will go make those extra mortgage principal payments, and when you do that, you are telling the bank, hey, Mr. Banker, here's an extra $500. Don't pay me any interest on that $500. If I need it back, I will try to get it back on your terms, and I'll pay you fees just for the privilege of having it returned to me. Plus, I will jump the hoops just to try to prove that I'm qualified again. You're trying to go against a one-way street, and, well, what happens when you travel against traffic like that? You get hurt, and you might even get injured in a head-on accident, or you get fined by the authorities, which is analogous here to you paying those fees just to get your money back. That's why conventional fixed-rate mortgages operate like a one-way street. A home equity line of credit, on the other hand, is like a two-way street. During your 5 to 10-year draw period, you can pay off your HELOC, pay down your HELOC, borrow out some money again, pay it back again, and then borrow it out once again, fee-free, no problem, both ways. A HELOC is a two-way street, and I cannot think of any reason not to have a HELOC on your property because it gives you flexibility. You can either draw against it, or you can just leave it lying there for use in an emergency. Now, before we're done today, I am actually going to give you the other side of the coin. Yeah, I'm going to give you some examples of situations where you would want to have a property fully paid off so that you can see both sides. But I think overall, you know that I'm a leverage guy, and most successful real estate investors are. In fact, the last time we had Robert Kiyosaki here on Get Rich Education with us, I asked him in general, wasn't even bringing up debt at all. I was just saying in general, what do you look for in a real estate deal? And he brought up debt right away. The first thing, let's just jump in and listen to that 2-minute portion. So, Robert, you talked about real estate deals and that you're still an active real estate investor. When you're looking at a real estate deal, what are some of the key things that you consider before you make a purchase? What do you try to keep in mind before buying?
How much debt can I get? I go back to it again. People miss this first question. Rich dad's lesson number one is the rich don't work for money. What I don't say is what the rich work for is debt. So I look at a piece of property, as you know, I'm looking for the NOI, the net operating income. So net operating income is income minus expense equals NOI. So the question is, how do I increase my income or reduce my expenses to increase my NOI? Because bankers on big projects only lend money on NOI. So if I can increase my NOI, net operating income, I can increase my debt. And debt is tax-free money. That's what I'm looking at. I just want to have a plan on how I can increase the capacity to hold debt that is paid for by my tenants. So my focus is on debt, not money.
I focus a lot on debt too. I mean, Robert, if it weren't for debt, I don't think I would be anywhere with real estate. The leverage that smart debt has made for me and the income that's made for me, all of it, which I can outsource to others. Yeah, so much of this begins with understanding debt really well to create wealth, and that's so counterintuitive to most people. And I think the reason that's counterintuitive to most people, tell me what you think, is most people from early age, they kind of associate debt with, they're sort of trapped underneath this debt. They're going to have to work overtime this weekend so they can afford their car payment, and therefore they associate debt with a whole bunch of struggle or something that they don't really want to do. They don't see it as something that can be outsourced to others while you create leverage for yourself as the investor.
There's consumer debt and investor debt. And most people are consumer debt. That's bad debt. That's how stupid they are. And then they call their car an asset and their house an asset. It's all consumer debt. That's why people are screwed up.
Robert was here with us on episodes 84 and 126. They're popular episodes in case you want to go back and listen. So at the top of the show, I gave a quote correlating being unconventional with being wealthy. So let's just look at one piece of conventional advice for a moment that I actually do agree with. Susie Orman says that a way to pay down your debts is to list all of your debts, document every one of them in a list, and organize them from highest interest rate down to lowest interest rate, and start paying off the highest rates first as you work your way down the list. I think that actually makes a fair bit of sense. Now, if your list is full of consumer debt that you have to pay off yourself, your tenant won't help you, like your credit cards, well, then you might want to work your way all the way down through the list to that point. But with my list, I don't want to pay off much because most of my debt is outsourced to others where my tenants pay my debt for me. Now, actually, I do have a little consumer debt in my life. I have a car loan at 2.8% interest. Well, no one else is going to pay that debt for me like my tenants do with my mortgages, so why don't I pay off my car loan since I could? Well, that's because I'm confident enough as an investor to know that I can go invest for a return substantially higher than 2.8%. If I just go make 10.8% on something, well, then I've created 8 percentage points of positive arbitrage, so therefore, I would suffer an opportunity cost if I paid off my car and had 100% equity in my car. Instead, I can basically use that money that I borrowed against the car and go out and earn a better return somewhere else. With good enough credit on a car loan, you can go get zero down, no payments for 60 days, and you can get interest rates below 3% on a car, so that's exactly what I did. Now, when you look at debt payoff, any type of debt that is, one thing to keep in mind is that paying off an 8% loan in your life, just say 8%, well, that's effectively like you achieving a guaranteed 8% rate of return. And with investing, there aren't any guarantees. Investing involves risk. Debt payoff doesn't. Just something to be mindful of when you're playing the arbitrage game. So let's get back to talking about real estate mortgage rates, since that's the most substantial debt type you'll probably have. Everyone believes rates are headed up, although most people have been thinking that for 5 years and they've still barely budged. But with the Fed making a few quarter-point interest rate hikes, increases in the last year and a half here, there are more and more believers that rates are heading up. So what does that mean for you? Well, lock in as much real estate as you practically can before they go up. What else does that mean for you? Well, higher rates are a headwind for real estate prices, but they're also a tailwind for real estate rents. Higher rates can get you higher rents because your tenants who are on the borderline of maybe moving out of your rental or getting close to moving out of your rental, they can no longer qualify if rates go up because it would make their payment higher. That higher potential mortgage payment, that's a headwind on their debt-to-income ratio, and that DTI is calculated prior to a prospective borrower securing a loan. Now, just last month, Realtor Magazine reported that the 3 largest credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they're going to start cleaning up credit scores and getting rid of a lot of the errors and derogatory information that have hurt consumer credit scores in the past. And it's estimated that about 11 million consumers could see a credit score increase of 20 points. That's plus 20 on their FICO once the new policy takes effect here this summer. Now, Fannie Mae is also increasing the DTI threshold, the debt-to-income ratio threshold, tomorrow. Yeah, I said tomorrow, which is July 29th. The debt-to-income ratio maximum allowed for mortgage loan qualification is increasing from 45% up to 50%, so a loosening of lending requirements. And by the way, DTI is a borrower's total amount of debt, and that includes credit cards, student loans, auto loans, mortgages, versus their total income. So with a bump from 45% up to 50% starting tomorrow, July 29th, that makes it easier for you and others to qualify for properties, both you and your tenants. People are more likely to default on loans due to losing their job, not really their debt-to-income ratio, but, this is a loosening nonetheless. So really, between an adjustment by the credit reporting agencies toward higher FICO scores and now a looser debt-to-income ratio from Fannie Mae, things are more loose. And this helps make housing demand in this already tight housing market, even tighter as more people are now qualified for mortgages. The other day, Zillow reported something that I guess I sort of knew, and maybe you did too, but I had not connected the dots like this before. And that is this: never have mortgage rates been so low when the national jobs market is operating at full capacity like it is today. And I mean, we sure can kind of scoff and argue that the unemployment rate being reported in the low fours is a joke, and it's sort of the textbook definition of full employment, if you will, and that's being rather generous. But let's think about what this means. Mortgage rates have never been so low when the national jobs market is operating at full capacity. Well, when the employment rate is high, like it is now, that usually means that in order for a business to lure an employee away from an existing job, that business has to offer that prospective new hire more money now. Well, those higher wages, that's something that stokes inflation and makes the Fed raise rates to help counter inflation. So the Fed is raising rates, but we're kind of at a unique time with this lag effect here, as mortgage rates still haven't moved up much. And see, yet investors can have this confidence of borrowing at these low rates because the employment picture is so rosy. And well, maybe rosy in numbers only. So really, it's no wonder then that home buying demand is so high right now. Now, let's talk about credit cards. While you don't want to run up new credit card debt right before applying for a mortgage loan, of course, because lenders see you as a great risk to them, some people, especially house flippers, including some flippers that have a fair level of sophistication, have had a great deal of success using 0% introductory interest rate credit cards to help fund their deals because they need a short-term loan while they have money tied up in the flip for several months until they recoup their funds from the sale. Now, 30% of your FICO credit score, which is the second largest ingredient, is based on your amounts owed. And is there anything that you would want to use 0% APR credit cards for in order to create arbitrage in your life? Well, that's a dangerous game to play, but some people win at it. Okay, what they do is when one goes ahead and originates a 0% APR loan for an 18-month introductory period, and that rate expires and they still haven't had the ability to pay it off if they don't, what they can do at that point after 18 months is they can transfer it onto a different bank's card after those 18 months. And it does have to be a different bank. You can't transfer, for example, one Chase card balance directly onto another Chase card. It needs to be Chase over to Bank of America or Chase over to some other bank. But some people have borrowed off 0% APR credit cards to invest the funds in a mortgage note yielding 9%, and they do create some arbitrage for themselves there. Now, if you pull $100K off credit cards, but you have credit card limits of $400K, well, then your utilization ratio is only 25%, so it might not hurt your FICO score that much. But, banks could still just go frown on your $100,000 of unsecured debt in the event that you're trying to qualify for an income property mortgage, because the bank might feel that that $100K is just still too great of an absolute amount for that bank's risk tolerance. And then there are a bunch of different rules and nuances around personal credit cards and business credit cards. We're not going to get into all of that today, but my point is, and I'm certainly not advocating for it, is that some people can use 0% APR credit cards for arbitrage if that investor is well organized and experienced and has an appetite for more risk, and they also remember to subtract out balance transfer fees from their projected arbitrage. It's just another example of how debt is used as a tool. So why do the banks offer 0% APR credit cards anyway? It's because they're betting on you to forget when your introductory rate expires, or for you to run up so much debt during the introductory period that you just simply can't pay it all back. So it's effectively the irresponsible people that are subsidizing the responsible people that are organized and create arbitrage for themselves. All right, well, I think you know that I'm a big fan of debt and leverage. Most investors that I know are as well. In fact, the godfather of real estate, Bob Helms, who has been investing in real estate in 7 different decades, starting in the 1950s and in every decade since, and has seen interest rates of upwards of 20%, he says he usually takes the leverage. Well, next I'm going to talk about when you might want to pay all cash for a property rather than use debt. You're listening to Get Rich Education. cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
This is the Real Wealth Network's Kathy Fettke, and you are listening to the always valuable Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education, where I hope you've been enjoying your summer. I sure have. That isn't to say I've been enjoying your summer. I've been enjoying my summer. Your summer enjoyment can be all yours. 2 weeks ago, a childhood friend of mine that I grew up with in Pennsylvania came out here to Anchorage, he and his wife, for a week. And one thing we did was ride these single-track bicycle trails in the woods. One evening we rode until 11:45 p.m. Yes, there was still daylight at 11:45 p.m. here at Anchorage's latitude in July. It's been quite a while since I moved here from Pennsylvania, but I still just can't get over that. The friend was actually the valedictorian of my high school class of 75 students years ago in tiny Coudersport, Pennsylvania. And, I was just thinking recently, I'm not sure what it is, but both that friend and other friends that I hang out with in Anchorage tend to be these very brainy valedictorian type guys, or some of them just were the valedictorian. And then there's me. You know what my class rank was in high school? Out of 75 students in my graduating class, I was ranked just 17th. Yeah, 17th out of 75. Now, I just really didn't care in high school, and I rarely brought any books home to study. And now I've founded a company called Get Rich Education. So what an irony. But what is that? 17th out of 75, not even the top 20% there. So anyway, you know that I'm a use leverage, heavily mortgaged type of investor, but when would you pay cash for a property, all cash, rather than use debt? And you want to ask about that, especially when interest rates are near historic lows. Well, there really are quite a few situations. Let's say that you're interested in buying a property that just simply is not financeable. You either must pay cash or you're going to lose out on the deal. Say that there's a health and safety finding by your property inspector at the property. Say you've got to add railings to a balcony, or that your mortgage underwriter just won't finance it otherwise. And at the same time, the person that's selling you the property refuses to add the railing for you. Well, one thing you could do is negotiate your sale amount downward or keep the price where it is and tell the seller you'll pay them all cash and then you'll add the railings after you've closed on it, and then down the road you can get financing. Another scenario where you would pay all cash is if you've got a distressed seller and that they're selling you a property because that seller needs cash right away. They need a quick sale. They don't have time to wait for financing. So you pay them all cash to make sure you lock up the deal, and then you might try to finance it later down the road, or maybe you don't. Now, 2 weeks ago, we featured the cash flowing market of Indianapolis, Indiana here on the show, and that's a fast moving market. And nationally, we're at a place where demand exceeds supply in a lot of markets. And in Indy, they turn over their inventory monthly, and some markets don't have the time to wait for purchasers to line up financing. Now, that Indianapolis provider was a cash-only provider at this time with no leverage. And you see, in Indy, they offer a lot of renovated, low-cost, single-family properties. And, one thing you have to realize as an investor is that you only have 10 Fannie or Freddie loan spots that you can use, and you can use 10 for yourself and 10 for your spouse. But the question is, do you want to use up your preferable Fannie, Freddie financing, just those few limited spots with the lowest rates and the best terms? Do you want to use that on low-price property? I mean, maybe you do and maybe you don't. 2 months ago, we had listener Eric Pratt here on the show, and he paid all cash, $61,000, for one of his Memphis properties. That way, he didn't use up one of his 10 loan spots. Additionally, it can be hard to find a loan for a loan amount of under $50,000, but you would have to feel frustrated if you used one of your loan positions for a $50,000 loan when you could get 80% loan to value on a cash flowing $300,000 fourplex. And see, that fourplex financing still takes up only one of your loan positions just the same. So when a property is inexpensive, you may, just a maybe, want to pay cash. Well, let's play a little clip from Ryan Moran here. He's not known as a real estate investor. He's a young businessman that knows that investing his business capital into real estate is a good idea. And this is about 3 minutes long. So let's play this and then I'll comment.
So first things first, I never recommend investing money that you can't afford to lose. But from a strategy perspective, I'm going to be a little bit hypocritical here, but I believe that debt, one of the most powerful things that you can do in a good investment strategy. Now, I buy real estate. I make my money in business. I park a lot of it in real estate. I tend to pay cash for the properties that I buy. The only reason I do that, though, is for speed of execution. I hate details. I'm really bad at details. So going and getting a mortgage on every property drives me crazy. So I'm more likely to pay cash for a property, refinance it later when I'm in the mental space of pulling that cash out. So I want to invest it somewhere else. But if you can get anything to ROI with debt, you're way better off getting the mortgage or getting the debt to buy the investment. We call that ROI arbitrage. You're going to pay 4.5% to the bank on your mortgage, but if the property gives you 9-10%, you're benefiting from that spread. It's absolutely what you should do. You also get the benefit of an additional tax write-off because you get to write off the mortgage as a tax write-off, so you actually save some of that money on your taxes. Plus, you don't tie up $100,000 in a house. You tie up $20,000 in the house as the down payment, which gives you $80,000 of potential money that you could put into the next property and the next property. So anything that you can do with debt, usually if you can make the ROI work, that's usually a better financial decision. But I'm speaking as a hypocrite because I usually pay cash for things, but only for the speed of execution. But anything that you can invest with debt, as long as you can predict the ROI, it's usually a better idea to go with debt. So to answer your question directly, no, you don't have to wait till you have the cash in the bank. You can do it as soon as you can prove that the ROI will cash flow even with the debt in place. If I could go back in time and talk to my 22-year-old self, the amount that I bought real estate during the crash, but I only bought a little bit. And the reason for that is because I waited until I had the cash. I did not go out and utilize debt to buy real estate when it was down here. And I wish I had. I mean, if I could go back and tell my 22, 23-year-old self, look, I know you have the cash, but instead of buying 3 houses or 4 houses with the cash, go out and buy 15 and leverage some debt. The net worth that would have created today, I wish I could go back and do that. In today's environment, everything is so, the market is here. I don't know that I would do that now, but if I could go back when I could have really doubled down in my holdings, I would be a much better position now. So I recommend going, you like leverage somebody else's money to make the investments you want to make. Because if I could go back 6 years and do that, I'd do it all day long and twice on Sunday.
Well, yeah, so Ryan knows that leverage makes more sense, but for speed of execution, he pays cash and then later might go back and get a loan on a property when he has the mental bandwidth for it, okay? So for some people, it just drives them nuts to scan 40-page documents at a time and then wait a day and then be told to search for 4 more pages and then go make another scan to your mortgage loan officer. Can you tolerate the annoyance to get the leverage? That's the question. That's up to you. Can you tolerate the annoyance to get the leverage? Another reason you might want to pay all cash for something is that you want foreign diversification, and as a U.S. citizen, it's often difficult to get a loan for foreign property. We've discussed resort property in Belize and agricultural investing in both Belize and Panama before. Now, if you're invested in a market where there's just no debt available at all in that market, and often that's going to be a country foreign to the U.S., so there's no debt when you buy in, say, Belize, and then see a few years down the road, debt does become available in that nation, well, then you're probably going to experience appreciation in your asset, okay? Entire markets appreciate all at once if loans become available when they were not available previously, of course, because that makes property demand greater because you've now got a greater buyer pool that has that capacity to pay. So there are a number of reasons for why you would want to pay all cash for a property and not use leverage. You probably didn't think that you would hear about that from me of all people because I have been and still am primarily a leverage guy. So in summary, leverage is best over the long term, especially when you're locking it up when interest rates are still at historic lows. There might be some short-term or atypical reasons for why you would want to pay all cash during your investing career, like I have myself from time to time, but only in certain situations. Whether you plan to use leverage or you're paying all cash, check out the providers I've put together for you at greturnkey.com. Jacksonville, Florida has had cash flowing inventory on hand. A number of you have purchased in Birmingham. Mid-South Homebuyers in Memphis has had just a great track record and a lot of lower-cost properties. Indianapolis is another market at greturnkey.com where you'll find lower-priced properties. Our Texas provider there has some of the higher-priced single-family homes, and there's some very nice Class A brick-constructed properties, though they don't tend to cash flow as well as those in some of the other markets that I mentioned. That's all at greturnkey.com. Patrick Donahoe will be here with me next week. Until then, whatever you do, don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.